This is a long-term control experimentation by the Chinese government to make the currency fully convertible and an international reserve currency. But in order to get there, it also wants this experimentation to be controlled. So the best way to do that is in an offshore market, such as Hong Kong. What we're seeing in the last 6-8 months is that once the currency becomes convertible for offshore investors, we're seeing issuance of bonds into the market. Investors have participated very vigorously. But what we're also seeing is China is still very much intent on controlling the pace of that issuance and that RMB creation. So it still has to, in order to repatriate the funds, you have to get safe approval or the government's approval. That means that the issuance of bond deals is very much controlled. The pace is actually not catching up with the demand for RMB. So what we've seen in the last 6 months is that yield only goes one way. It tightened because there's so much overwhelming demand from all of the RMB sittings in Hong Kong looking for that investment product. And so that supply and demand imbalance will persist as long as China keeps a very firm grip on the RMB issuance pace.
You say it's an experiment, this experimentation going on. How long is that experiment going to last, do you think?
Well, I think, the reason I say experimentation is as everything China does is very much control pace, and there's a saying, feeling the stone while you cross the river. That's the way they approach, a market reform. So here, when you internationalize a currency or make a RMB convertible, there are a lot of benefits, but there are risks as well. Because once you open up the capital account, money will come in and go out at the investor's whim, and that disrupts policymaking. So those are the concerns that the policymakers are watching, while at the same time, they definitely see that, for the country, it's very prestigious and beneficial to have the currency as an international currency, because you can settle RMB and pay for all the trades in your own currency. So in weighing that risk and reward, the policymakers are going to see what is this market, how it shapes up in Hong Kong, what are the control that they need to put in place, and that's why I call it a control experiment.
So if you were sitting in the People's Bank of China at the moment, what would you do, or what would your advice be to the People's Bank of China?
Taking a very much measured pace in terms of allowing this market to grow. You don't want it to let it grow so fast that the flow of capital becomes an issue from an inflation concern. However, you don't also want to make it too slow that you choke investors' interest for the currency. So it's really a balancing act. And China has done this kind of thing before in other market opening up. I think they have, all the tool sets and the think tank that is very much thinking about, the whole market, how to open up. But we think that it will take a very measured pace, like other markets.
So you said don't go too fast, don't go too slow. At the moment, how's the People's Bank of China doing? Too fast, too slow?
Well, it depends on who you are. If you are an investor, like I represent, it's a little too slow, because that has caused the yield curve to be, I think, a little distorted. The yield curve in the offshore market is deviating from the onshore market by more than 250 basis points. That's very expensive for the offshore investor to pay for the privilege of getting into the currency. That's all a result of the bond issuance being a little too slow. We think that pace will pick up this year.